things happened, and the guy's closing his shop. So.
Good evening, and welcome to the San Bruno City Council meeting, January 26th, 2010. First of all, I'd like to thank the San Bruno Garden Club for the flowers. They always do a beautiful job. Roll call, please.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Here.
Mayor Ruane.
Here.
Councilmember Salazar.
Here.
And Councilmember Iber has been excused tonight with notice. I would like to ask, we see a number of, I think, 9 Boy Scouts here from troop number 34, and I'd like to single out Thomas. Would you please lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the meeting. Announcements: we will have a redevelopment agency meeting tonight, and it'll follow the city council meeting. Presentations: we do have a presentation this evening, and it's a proclamation to the American Red Cross declaring January National Blood Donor Month, and I'd like to read that now. City Council of the City of San Bruno, State of California, whereas donating blood is a potentially life-saving gift that millions of Americans can give, just one blood donation may help save 3 lives. And whereas every day blood is needed in hospitals and emergency treatment facilities for patients with cancer and other diseases, for organ transplant recipients, and to help save the lives of accident victims. And whereas the need for blood is constant, especially during the winter months when blood is traditionally in short supply, due to a reduction in donor turnout because of the holidays, busy travel schedules, inclement weather, and illness, which can put blood inventory at a critical low. And whereas the American Red Cross Northern California Blood Services region distributes more than 130,000 pints of blood per year to help save local patients, yet fewer than 100,000 pints of blood are collected in the region annually. And whereas some 38% of the public is eligible to donate, yet fewer than 8% of these individuals present to donate blood. And whereas there is a need for civic and service organizations and businesses to sponsor blood drives, I, therefore, Jim Ruane, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, hereby proclaim the month of January as National Blood Donor Month and urge all citizens to pay tribute to those among us who donate for others in need. I urge citizens in good health to donate regularly. I also urge all civic and service organizations and businesses, if they have not already done so, to form blood donor groups to provide blood for others. And I would like to present this to Sarah Doms, the National Red Cross, and I'll come over to the podium and you can say a few words.
Again, my name is Sarah Doms. I'm with the American Red Cross Blood Services here in the Northern California region. Thank you very much. And thank you to Mayor Ruane and the City Council for recognizing the importance of National Blood Donor Month. The holidays and winter months are traditionally the most difficult times to maintain an adequate blood supply. Your support is appreciated. It takes about an hour to donate a pint of blood, yet it may be one of the most important things you do. One donation can help save the lives of up to 3 people. Organizations in San Bruno sponsored 4 blood drives in 2009, producing 172 pints of blood. And that means that as many as 516 people may have been helped through this life-saving act. Please call 1-800-GIVE-LIFE, that's 800-448-3543, or visit us online at redcrossblood.org to make an appointment for one of these drives or to find out about other nearby drives in the area. We would also welcome calls from local businesses and service organizations who wish to hold a blood drive in the near future. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Sarah. Item number 5, review of the agenda. Any changes, additions, comments? Okay. Item number 6, approval of the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of January 12th, 2010. Changes, errors, submissions? Seeing none, they'll stand as submitted. Consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implement an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested by a council member, citizen, or staff.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8, we do have a public hearing tonight. Notices have been published, posted, and mailed. Hold a public hearing and adopt resolutions authorizing the City of San Bruno to participate in the California First program and authorizing lead agencies to apply on behalf of the city energy efficiency and financing program grant funds from the California Energy Commission. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be before you tonight to discuss the energy efficiency and solar power initiatives that the city has the opportunity to be a part of. There are 3 separate yet very interrelated programs that we'll be discussing. The San Mateo County Regional Energy Action Program, which is a group of cities in San Mateo County as well as the county itself. The California First program, which is a financing program enabled by a joint powers authority between counties and cities throughout California, and Retrofit Bay Area, which is a program spearheaded by ABAG and its member counties. Lest I forget, the California First and the Retrofit Bay Area programs are also programs where we are co-applicants for grant funds that we're applying for the state, and so there are 2 resolutions authorizing entities to act sort of on our behalf in that grant process. But we'll get to that, but just so there's a little bit of background. Maybe the full screen version. First, take a quick look back at what was done back in June of 2009. The council authorized several different programs to be funded through an energy efficiency and conservation block grant, which is authorized by that stimulus act that was passed back in February, the American Renewal and Reinvestment Act of 2009. $3.2 billion from that act was to be distributed by the Department of Energy for energy efficiency related projects. A portion of that went directly to the city's over 35,000 population, of which San Bruno is one of them. We got $160,000 of that money. The rest of that went to the states, and so the states, California in particular, is distributing some of that money to the small cities who didn't get an allocation, and the remainder is going to be available through competitive grants, which, to make our application more competitive, San Bruno is partnering with a number of other cities and counties for some of that money. The $160,000 that San Bruno has been allocated through the EECBG, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. We have $40,000 for a climate action plan, which is a plan that will enable the city to make concrete policy and program choices to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, both from city operations and from our community as a whole. $20,000 for an LED streetlight pilot program, $20,000 for energy study for energy efficiency and renewable energy study for our utility facilities. That'll be matched with $20,000 from our enterprise funds for a project cost of $40,000. And then a $80,000 for an energy efficiency retrofit program, of which the $80,000 can be applied to the programs we're going to be talking about in a moment. We officially got the award only a few weeks ago, so now we can start spending this money and moving forward on these 4 projects. So the Regional Energy Action Program, that is the name that we are calling ourselves here in San Mateo County, with a collaboration between the cities and the county. REAP is for short. The goal is sort of 2 interrelated goals. Promote the construction of energy efficiency improvements to reduce energy consumption, things like weather stripping, insulation of walls, double pane windows, those sorts of things. And then provide a financing and incentive mechanism to both enable those improvements to happen for homeowners who may not have the cash to make it happen, as well as provide some financing options to install solar panels once your home is energy efficient. With those 2 goals in mind, we hope to achieve a 20% energy reduction within 1,500 homes in San Mateo County in the next 3 years. This is sort of a part of a small pilot program that we hope will kickstart a much broader movement in reducing energy consumption in the county. So there are 2 big components that will help make San Mateo County REAP happen. One of them is a policy and standards, and the other one is the financing piece. So the program called Retrofit Bay Area is spearheaded by ABAG, and there was concern that the cities and the county and the other counties in the Bay Area not do different programs and not have different standards for what constitutes an energy efficiency retrofit, which retrofit should be done first. For example, you probably want to do weather stripping before you put on solar panels, those sorts of things. So ABAG is spearheading a program called Retrofit Bay Area, which puts together the nuts and bolts to have a comprehensive program to encourage energy efficiency retrofits and construction, as well as the certification and training of contractors to make that happen. It's a pretty nascent industry at the moment, and this is also seen as a job creation tool to put construction folks to work. The other piece is the California First program, which is the financing mechanism to allow some of this to happen. So if a homeowner, property owner wants to do some efficiency improvements but may not have the cash up front, there will be an option through the California First program to finance those improvements and have them paid on their property tax roll. You may recall Berkeley initiated a measure similar to this a couple years back. This is a more refined version of that program, and will be administered not by the individual cities, but by the agency California First, which is a joint powers authority, and a specialized bond consultant to help raise the funds for that financing piece. So when you put the policy standards and the financing incentives together, that will allow the San Mateo County program to be able to market this program and encourage residents and contractors to take advantage of this. Sort of this is a little bit of a restatement there. The ABAG Retrofit Bay Area, and this is also the pieces that make up the grant applications that both of these programs will be vying for in the competitive statewide grant. So the Retrofit Bay Area program will look at the marketing, workforce development, quality assurance, evaluation, monitoring, the nuts and bolts. ABAG is taking the lead on this. The program partners helping with the grant application include BKI and Build It Green, which are private consultants working on the project. The California First program, you may hear in the future called a PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing, just a term that is not all that friendly, but you may just encounter it in the future. Basically, municipal finance, meaning that a government is able to finance the improvements on the property tax roll. Not that we as a municipality will be doing it, but our joint powers authority with whom we're partners will be able to finance both energy efficiency improvements and the installation of solar panels. The program partners include CSCDA, which you can also refer to as California Communities. That's the joint powers authority created by the cities and counties of California. They would be sort of the legal entity behind the financing program. Renewable Funding is the sort of bonding company handling sort of the backbone financial transactions. And then Sacramento County will be the lead applicant for the statewide competitive grant. And Ecology Action is a private nonprofit assisting with the application and early implementation of the project. The members of both the programs, the Retrofit Bay Area, obviously, most of the counties here in the Bay Area. For the California First, San Mateo County and its cities are part of the pilot program for this. So I believe there are 14 counties that are eligible to be the first to try this out, and so we're pretty excited to be able to be sort of at the forefront of this. Once the pilot program gets going, then it'll be open to all cities and counties within California. The available funding that may come about through this grant, so this is not for sure funding yet, but the ABAG is approximately a $10 million grant, of which approximately $790,000 may come to San Mateo County for our use as a collaborative program. For the California First program, I believe the total grant is about $16 million. About $370,000 will be available for San Mateo County. And then San Mateo County itself had a allocation from that Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant of $500,000. That's money that's locked up. They have will be spent on this program no matter what happens there. And then, as we mentioned earlier, San Bruno has $80,000 from its own EECBG funding that we can apply both to any costs that aren't covered that may occur if we don't get the grants, as well as any local distribution for to promote the program within our own jurisdiction. So very tentative on how might it work. Not how does it work, but how might it work. It's a little early, but wanted to give folks a taste of how this program is starting to come together. The homeowner wants to reduce energy consumption, wants to be more green, wants to reduce greenhouse gases. So they go to the ABAG website or the Retrofit Bay Area website. They choose a qualified, certified energy audit contractor. energy auditor comes to their home, does the inventory, says, hey, here are the recommended improvements that you should be making based on what the loading order is. The homeowner says, well, I'd like to do all those, but I can't really afford all of those, so they apply to the California First web portal, apply for a request for a loan to do those improvements that they choose to do. After approval and construction of the improvements, the California First then sends a check to the homeowner sends a check to the contractor, and then the repayment of that loan is done on the property tax roll over a specified period of time of the loan contract, 5, 10, 20, 25 years. We're expecting program rollout to begin late 2010. This is a new and ambitious program that will take a little while to get rolling, but that's how we hope it might look and the timeline that we're probably looking at. A few pending program details. We have to figure out here locally how best to market the program to our contractors and residents. There'll be a region-wide effort, but we'll also need to target that locally within our cities and county. There is a strong discussion of creating a community advisory committee to help with the workforce development portion of this piece, the training of the contractors and building inspectors, and determining what types of subsidies could be used to qualifying homeowners to help subsidize the direct cost. So with that said, then there are 3 different resolutions before you. The first was what required the public hearing. This is a requirement for the California First program that we hold a public hearing and provide notice in the paper 5 days prior to council action. And that's to join the California First program, to actually enroll and say we want to be a part of these 14 counties and cities to be part of the program. The second 2 are resolutions authorizing agencies to act on our behalf to apply for grant funds. So first for Sacramento County as the lead agency for the California First program, and the ABAG to apply on our behalf for the Retrofit Bay Area program. So I'm pleased that at this time I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up with this project.
Any questions of Mr. Shannon?
Thank you. It's very exciting to see all this come together. I just have one question. It might be too early in the program to know, but is there any feeling about what the interest rate might be for the loans?
So we think the interest rate is, because these are new financial instruments, the market for the bonds may not be as strong as we would like. So part of what that grant that California First is applying for is to help buy down that interest rate. So we think the interest rate is going to be somewhere between 7 and 8.5%. So the hope is, I think, maybe to buy down that by a percentage point for this pilot program. And then once the market sees that these are sort of viable instruments and the loans are working, it will reduce the market price of the interest rate going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, at this time we'll open the public hearing. Anybody like to speak on this item? Okay, if I close the public hearing, you are precluded from speaking on this item, and you should know that now. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So moved. We have 3 items, 3 different resolutions. One is actually for the resolution authorizing the city to participate, and the other 2 are for the agencies to act on our behalf. Is that correct? Sacramento and ABAG.
Everyone's looking at me.
We need to do these,
Do you want them
Pamela,
separately?
3 separate.
Together?
Probably separately would.
Okay. Well, I'd like to introduce the resolution, all of them, but I'll start with the first one.
To join the California
Councilmember
First.
O'Connell,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
And then the second one, which is it's authorize the financing.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.
And then the next one is to authorize Sacramento County as the lead agency to apply for the state energy program grant funds.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. All right, thank you. Our next item is public comment on items not on the agenda. It is the council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation, and/or action where appropriate. The Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would anyone like to speak on public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll go right to conduct of business. Item 10A, adopt a resolution accepting the independent auditor reports, the city's comprehensive annual financial report, and Measure A funds audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2009. Kim Duran.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, earlier this evening you heard from the city's independent auditor, Meyer Hoffman McCann, regarding the audit results for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2009. The audited financial statements include statement of net assets, statement of activities and changes in net assets, balance sheet, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, as well as the statements of cash flows. The reports that were issued include the city's consolidated annual financial report, redevelopment agency component statements, and a Measure A compliance report. Meyer Hoffman McCann found that the general purpose financial statements present fairly in all material ways the city's financial position as of June 30, 2009. Therefore, it is recommended that the City Council accept the consolidated annual financial report and Measure A compliance report for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2009. And I'd be happy to answer any questions with regards to the audit.
Thank you. We had a fairly thorough talk a little while ago for an hour and a half or so on this item. Any additional questions? Action?
I'll introduce a resolution accepting the independent auditor reports.
Vice Mayor Medina,
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar,
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell,
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Item B, receive the quarterly financial report as of December 31st, 2009 for the 2009-10 General Fund, Special Revenue Funds, Enterprise Funds, and Capital Improvement Budgets. Mr. O'Leary.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, in looking at the reports for the first 6 months of the year on the city's various budgets, it does give the City Council an opportunity to consider the revenues and expenses that have been received during the year and begin to set a trend and to be able to look at what we might expect to realize through the course of the 12-month budget period. As the Council well knows, there are various impacts of the economic crisis that's hit the nation and the region. And just briefly, the assessed values in San Mateo County and the city of San Bruno have declined. Foreclosures of property are up. The unemployment rate in San Mateo County has risen to 9%, which is about double what it was only 2 years or so ago. Business and leisure travel remains down. That impacts both our TOT, the hotel, motel tax, and also the airport parking tax as it relates to traveler parking related to the airport. Development and construction, I want to amend, I say here it's disappeared. It's significantly reduced throughout the county, throughout the state, which has a variety of impacts, and it directly is impacting the revenue the city of San Bruno is receiving. And then, as the City Council spoke earlier at the study session, the state at this point is continuing their plan to grab $1.9 million of the city's redevelopment agency funds to use for their own purposes for attempting to balance the state budget. The City Council is well aware that this is a matter of litigation. Litigation is currently underway, but at this point, from the state's perspective, they are expecting the city to be paying this $1.9 million in May of this year. would like to just walk through the general fund revenues with the City Council and make a couple of comments on the revenues. This page is showing the general government, primarily the tax and related revenues the city receives. The next slide has departmental revenues. And there's really two areas of concern at this point, again, looking halfway through the year and projecting all of our revenues for the next 6 months. There are two primary areas of concern. I'll touch on these as I go through, and then there's additional slides where I make some more comments about those particular two. Property tax, you see 44% is received through first half of the year, and generally one would anticipate just based on formula that halfway through the year you should receive pretty close to half of the revenues, and there would be half of the expenditures. So I'm primarily going to comment on those that are deviating more significantly from the 50%. Property tax is declining. The budget for property tax this year is less than it was for last year, and yet we're only at 44% of the property tax revenue for this year. This very specific reason for that is the state did take in December property tax. They borrowed under the provisions of Proposition 1A. They borrowed about $429,000 of our property tax revenue, and that's the specific reason for the 44% number. Although because of the action the City Council took related to the securitization of that and the provision that the League of California Cities was instrumental in setting up for cities, on January 19th, the city actually received that $429,000 back again. So in essence, for the first half of the year, revenue is pretty close to 50%, and we're pretty confident that property tax, again, while it's declining as a revenue source, is going to meet the budget of this year. Sales tax is only 37%. We now believe that sales tax is going to be significantly under the budget, and again, I'll come back to that in a moment with a couple of other comments. The other revenues are pretty much on track. I would say I might just mention motor vehicle license fees, 48%. Overall, that might be down a little bit, but there is some ERAF money that the city is getting excess of that will probably offset that. But what I just wanted to mention to the council is the half of the motor vehicle license fee money we receive currently is through the triple flip process that the state has developed. The state, in applying that, is increasingly collecting administrative fees related to the collection, both at the state level and the county level, and what they're transmitting to the city. And we now anticipate that next year there will be a measurable and a significant decrease in our motor vehicle license fee revenue, primarily because of the actions, again, the state, for their own purposes, taking some of our BLF money. But for this year, I don't think there will be a significant deviation. Again, business taxes are shown significantly high because business licenses themselves are collected at the beginning of the year. What they're actually due in August. So that is primarily paid in advance. So that's the reason that is high. Down under departmental revenues, for the most part, revenues are on track. The fire appears high at 79%, only because of the advance payment of the residential or the multifamily inspection fee. So that's collected with a business license. So that's why that is ahead of schedule. The other area of concern of the two that I mentioned is planning and building at 37%. That is a revenue source that, based on what we know now, is probably going to be under under our budget. Overall, our revenues in the general fund are at 45% of the total budget this year. At the same time last year, it was 48%. So we are a little bit under the percentage, and again, that's driven primarily by the sales tax being short or being short and then projecting to be short for the whole year, and the same with building and planning. So just to summarize the economic crisis as it impacts San Bruno, property tax revenue has declined and is declining. Taxable sales has dropped within the city. And just a brief summary, the top 10 businesses, the sales tax they've generated, the sales and the sales tax they've generated have dropped 24% one quarter since 2007. Our auto dealers, we have 2 auto dealers in town now, they are down 50% again since 2007. And the department stores at Tanfran are down 8% since 2007. In addition to that, the hotel tax revenue is collected monthly, and we now have been in a period of decline compared to the same month the year before. We've had 13 months of decline of our TOT tax, and that's following about a 16-month period of increase in TOT. This slide is really showing, summarizing the actions the City Council took in adopting the 09-10 budget for property tax, sales tax, the TOT, and then planning and building fees as it relates to the budget that was approved for the prior year. You can see property tax was dropped by almost $500,000. Sales tax compared to the prior budget was $865,000 reduced. The hotel tax was $51,000, and planning and building fees were $1.5 million reduced. Based on what we see at this point, the projection for the rest of the year for sales tax, even after the $865,000 reduction that was taken, it appears that there might be an additional $700,000 reduction in sales tax revenue by June 30th. And planning and building fees, after we again reduce them by $1.5 million, based on the current trend, our expectation is that there might be an additional $300,000 reduction in planning and building revenues for 9-10. Going back to the sales tax for a second, just wanted to indicate to the council, if you look back over the last 10 quarters, you can see the decline that has occurred in our actual sales tax receipts each quarter since the first quarter of 07-08. You can see the first quarter of 07-08, we received $1,720,000 in sales tax revenue, and from that time, except for that the blip up in the third quarter of that same year, you can see that there's a virtual decline every quarter all the way down, where based on our analysis with our sales tax consultants, you can see our estimates for the next 2 quarters of this year, the third and fourth quarters of the current year. You see further declines. And just wanted to point out that when we were making our estimates for the current year, we were really in the second and third quarters of 08-09, where the sales tax had according to those quarters, had somewhat stabilized at $1.6 million each quarter. We recognized that there were going to be declines, and again, that's the $865,000 that we were anticipating reduction in 9-10. The fact that there's an additional $700,000 is just really reflecting the state of the economy, and it would have been difficult to predict that. I did want to make one comment one additional comment from really the first slide talking about San Mateo County unemployment rate at 9%. It would just be a belief that while in many measures economists would say that the economy has improved over the past 12 months in many ways. I mean, they talk nationally about the recovery is without jobs, and the fact that the unemployment is staying up at such a high level here in San Mateo County, it would seem to me would have a direct relationship to our continuing ability to stem the lowering sales tax. When people are unemployed and don't have work, it's difficult for them to purchase the items that sales tax are on. So I think there's probably a correlation that until the unemployment improves, we probably don't have great expectation for the sales tax to improve. Those are really my comments on the general fund revenue. I was would be glad to answer any questions. On the general fund expenditure, the total expenditure is 48% of the budget, and it was 48% at the same time last year. In almost, we've done a detailed analysis of every expenditure line item. The two areas, and while police and fire are both under 50%, as shown here, line items that would concern us a little bit are overtime. Staying within the overtime budget in both police and fire is a challenge, and I would expect that there will be some overage based on the first 6 months trend in overtime in the public safety departments. So just in summary, it would be the belief as far as the general fund is concerned, again, based on the data that we have for 6 months, that I would believe is a credible trend. It would be our expectation that there may be general fund revenues totaling $1 million less than what we had budgeted. Of the $30 million we had budgeted, there will likely be a reduction of up to $1 million more. And in looking at the fund balance, the difference between revenues and expenses, and again, in some measure, focusing on the overtime on the expenditure side, might expect an overall gap between revenues and expenditures to be around $1.3 million. So based on what we actually received so far, that would be my best projection of where we will go over the next 12 months, or the next 6 months, the total year. I was just going to make the other funds. There's not much different to report. Again, on the redevelopment agency, the revenue at 60% is so high, really, because of some one-time revenues that the redevelopment agency has received this year. So I don't believe we're going to repeat the $4.1 million that we received in the first half of the year in the second half, but I do believe that we're going to be very close, or we will be slightly over, very close to the budget number. I might point out that what we're showing is a $7 million expectation of revenue into the general fund operations. Last year, that amount was $6 million. So there has been, in this year, and again, the redevelopment agency, just to indicate again, the viability and the robustness of the redevelopment agency at this point, and the growth in revenue in the redevelopment agency, it's still significant. The internal service funds and the garage and buildings and self-insurance and technology, there are no significant deviations from the budget, and don't really expect anything Other than that, for the second half of the year, again, the revenues at 50%, these are all allocation driven, so we are going to get 100% of the allocations at the end of the year, and you see that the expenditure totals are generally below the 50%. The only one that's higher is self-insurance, and the explanation for that is there are insurance premiums that cover the whole year that are due in July, so a significant amount of the expenditure total is spent at the beginning of the year, but again, overall would anticipate that expenditures are not going to go over. And then finally, again, for the enterprise accounts, close to what would be expected. The revenues are right around 50%. Expenditures a little bit less. Would just point out in the packet report on stormwater, there is a significant difference between the revenues this year and last year in stormwater, and that's an anomaly only to the extent that the stormwater fund is significantly small. That last year, when the Lehman Brothers investment loss was allocated to the stormwater fund, it appeared to be a significant, it had a significant impact on the revenue. So the point is that the stormwater fund itself is not doing significantly better than last year, except that the one-time loss last year is not being repeated again. With that, that is my report, and if the council had any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions of Mr. O'Leary? I believe the city manager has some comments on this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given the information that is presented in this report, I am asking the City Council to, as part of your action to receive this report tonight, to direct staff to move expediently to a study session with the City Council, at which time I believe we need to immediately address the effects of this additional revenue loss that's affecting the current year's budget, and if unaddressed will continue to create a problem or exacerbate a problem that we anticipate for next year's budget. Having made that request, I would like just to reiterate something that Mr. O'Leary said, and just for the purpose of making clear that the city did take the necessary actions, both at the mid-year last year, when we observed an even more significant problem occurring last year, as well as at the adoption of the budget in June of 2009, the current year's budget. The results that you're receiving tonight are not a factor of improper budget oversight, as you see that expenditures are trending in the manner that one would expect given our normal operations. Unfortunately, the issue that we're experiencing is an additional revenue loss below those levels that were decreased in the budget over the prior year and still continuing to decline. It is for that reason that I think we need to move expediently towards discussion about what to do about this situation. And again, I would ask the City Council direct us to immediately try and identify a date. We've already done some work on that, and it's proving to be a little bit difficult. So I would suggest that that study session occur within the next 2 weeks.
Through the chair, I would agree and direct, my opinion, for a study session as soon as possible with the City Council. Also to not only ask for the citizens' participation in this, to be engaged, but also for the city employees to be invited to this study session so they can be a part of the process as well, to update the group or committee that meets on a regular basis since last year's negotiations. Obviously the state is borrowing, the state is taking, but we're required to balance our budget. And I believe the citizens expect us to live within our means as they have to, as we all up here have to. And I think we're going to have some very hard questions that are going to have to be asked, and some very tough decisions are going to have to be made. So I would encourage everyone to be engaged and participate and look at the process and offer your commentary and your ideas. And assist us along the way, because this is going to affect all of us as a community. And it's our community. So I would encourage your participation as well.
Any other comments, questions? Do you have, I know that we've talked preliminarily about some dates in the very near future. Do you have anything in mind now, or do you want to get back to us with some more proposed dates so we can get back to you?
I think the most efficient thing to do would be to follow up with you beginning tomorrow morning. The dates that we've looked at already are not available for all 5 city council members. And that being noted, if it's council's pleasure that this occur soon, then we may have to consider whether we go with 4 council members. But we will certainly get on that first thing in the morning, and I would say that would be the more efficient way to handle it.
Okay, very good. We'll be hearing from the city manager. We want an action on this to motion to receive the report, or do we need anything?
It's not necessary.
Okay, fine. Item C, receive report regarding outreach conducted for implementation of the Sustainable Food Packaging Ordinance effective April 1st, 2010.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure again to be before you tonight to discuss the polystyrene ban that will be effective on April 1, 2010, also known as the Sustainability Food Packaging Ordinance. A review of what the ordinance includes and requires. It was adopted back in February of last year. It prohibits the use of polystyrene as a component of any food serviceware products that is disposable. So things like utensils, straws, lids, cups, plates, any kind of containers. Those have to be either reusable, recyclable, biodegradable, or compostable. And it's a very similar ordinance that is in effect in Millbrae, in South San Francisco, and in Pacifica, our nearest neighbors, as well as some other agencies in the Bay Area. It applies to all establishments that serve food on premise or serve food to go, and it also includes all city facilities and city events as well. Consistent with prior city council direction when we adopted the ordinance, we wanted to provide a significant amount of outreach to the impacted businesses and establishments that will have to comply with the ordinance to make sure that there was full understanding about what alternatives are needed, when they're needed by, and any additional help. So we did 3 mailings since the adoption of the ordinance. One of those mailings was trilingual in English, Spanish, and Chinese. We also engaged a contractor to assist with business outreach, contractor that is very familiar with outreaching directly to businesses on environmental issues. They conducted personal site visits to impacted establishments and made follow-up phone calls where necessary to help walk through some particular concerns with individual establishments or with perhaps a supplier or corporate supply chain if that establishment was a franchisee. They also did some research into the availability and pricing of alternative products. The products certainly are widely available. The cost differential still exists as a few more cents per item, so that is still a factor. We also held additional meeting with food vendors just last week, as we had intended to, and I'll report about that in a moment. From the outreach conducted prior to the meeting, the reaction was generally positive. Most folks knew the ordinance prior to the visit actually happening. The responses ranged from, great, this is where we should be going, we should have done it a long time ago, to, well, this is the way the industry is going, and so we're happy to move in that direction. So really sort of ranged the gamut, but we had very little negative response, and so we find that very, very positive. We have approximately 35 of the approximately 130 establishments in San Bruno are already compliant. Many of the others are using their existing product and fully plan to comply by April 1st. The city worked with several establishments, like we said, to identify issues with supply chains. So the most tricky issues are typically with franchise operations where they have a dedicated supply chain, and so that corporate partner has to know sort of what the ordinance entails, what products qualify, what substitutes can be used. So we've really worked through a number of those issues with the businesses directly, and some of that work is ongoing as we continue. With the food vendors we had on Thursday, we had three come. We had a representative from Artichoke Joe's, Don Pico's, and the Togos. Generally, they are able to find the appropriate alternatives. They're a little more costly than the polystyrene, the normal polystyrene products. The lids for hot liquids are a little challenging. So for example, lids for coffee cups, it's hard to find a good biodegradable substitute that holds up under hot coffee and holds the actual top of the cup well. That has been an item that has been exempt for mostly all the ordinances that I know because there's no suitable alternative yet. And the ordinance we have does provide the city manager to approve an exemption where no feasible alternative does exist. So an example of that would very likely be the hot liquid lids. And then just to report out that Togo's was also having some issues with their corporate supplier, and so shortly after the meeting we put them in touch with our contractor, and they've already been in discussion and trying to iron out those issues. Some proposed next steps. We do want to do one more round of mailing and site visits prior to April 1. One, to ensure that everyone is understanding of the ordinance and understanding is ready to comply, and two, to recognize those that had complied early. So those that are on board by March 1, we want to provide some special recognition for those that took the extra effort to get there before they had to get there. Ideas that have been discussed with the council subcommittee on sustainability. We had discussed a city council recognition, a certificate from the city or a small banner placed in the storefront window, as well as, of course, cable TV and website promotion. Staff will certainly endeavor to make that happen prior to March 1. And that's really the report as things stand so far. And Director and myself are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just a quick clarification. This also includes the movable vendors, commonly known as taco trucks, right?
It does.
Okay. Any questions?
Through the chair.
Irene?
Thank you. One, doesn't Starbucks use recyclable or compostable lids for their coffees? Or is that?
I believe the hot lids, they use the typical polystyrene, the number 6 has it on the top. Starbucks has the ability to have all the rest of their components be biodegradable or compostable or recyclable.
Okay.
I think it's still the outstanding issue, the hot coffee lid.
Okay. I thought I had seen 5 on theirs, but I guess I'm mistaken.
That would be great if that's the case. I haven't heard that yet, but we'll check into that.
We'll check. So I just want to clarify, this also covers everything at the food court at Tan Fran, and it also covers places like 7-Eleven or any other places that do food. So that's
Correct.
Fantastic.
Correct.
And then what if somebody is not complying?
So
what do people do if they walk into anybody's?
So we certainly encourage if folks come to an establishment and they get something that's not recyclable or not biodegradable, clearly has a number 6 on it, which means it's polystyrene or it's the dead giveaway of the styrofoam containers. Let the city know. The Public Works Department will contact them to provide them information that they need to comply, and they need to make efforts immediately to start complying. If there is continued resistance, then there is ability in the ordinance to have a code enforcement action against that particular establishment. But we really anticipate pretty good compliance for this.
Okay, so 2 more clarifications. Who do people contact? Like Public Works or the city? Who? And then when you say code enforcement, tell people what that is, because I think people, especially the Boy Scouts that are here, need to know.
Sure. So I would encourage folks to call either Community Development Code Enforcement or Public Works Department for that first time. For the first notice of a violation, Public Works will be notified since we're the most familiar with the ordinance. We'll go out to the establishment, talk to, really assess what the particular problem is. If that problem is not solved, then we bring in code enforcement. And what code enforcement does is enforce what are called nuisance violations, where there's an official warning. If no action is taken after the official warning, then there is a fine of $100. If no action is taken after the first $100 fine, then there's a $200, and so on to $500. That will be the formal process that would happen if an establishment refuses to comply.
Okay, thank you.
Through the
Any
chair.
other questions? Vice Mayor?
Mine is very quick. I just, Mr. Shannon, I just wanted to say that you put a lot of dedication and outreach into this process for a long period of time. And I think that it's not just been an assignment to you. I think it's something you believe in and you think it's good for the future and for the community, and I want to commend you for that, and thank you for your efforts.
Appreciate that.
Good. I would like to echo that, too. I'm on the Sustainable Committee with Councilwoman O'Connell, and there's been a lot of time and effort on your behalf and staff to make this happen. This is a very good thing for the city, and I'm glad we're right at the edge. Thank you. Speaker?
Robert Rico, 7th Avenue. Can you give us the 2 phone numbers tonight, and can those phone numbers be put on Channel 1 or whatever so that people
Jim?
readily have it? They don't have to figure out how to get it?
Yeah.
I would call 650-616-7065, 610-616-7065. That's a Public Works number. That's the best way.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
And I would
Anything
just, if I could take a moment, the 3 people sitting to the right of me certainly put a ton of effort into getting the ordinance right, narrowing it down. So definitely thank you to...
So did you get any, like, recyclable dishes to try, just to make sure?
Oh, I've got a box. Do you want one some? I've got 2 boxes, actually, yeah. Let's go have a party.
All right. Any other questions? No. All right, we'll move on to item 10D, which is adopt a resolution authorizing the award of contracts for purchase of a 2010 Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor from Hoblit Fleet Group in the amount of $24,948. A 2010 Westward Industry Go4 Model Interceptor 3 from Municipal Maintenance Equipment in the amount of $31,377. And a propelled thermoplastic applicator and trailer from Dispensing Technology Corporation in the amount of $84,415. Staff report, please.
Honorable Mayor and City Council members, thank you for your time. When I'm finished, it's my understanding the City Manager will also address the subject. I'm here tonight to recommend the purchase of 3 pieces of equipment. The first is a patrol vehicle for our police department. The department maintains a fleet of 14 patrol vehicles and typically replaces 2 to 3 a year. Because of the unique demands placed on police patrol vehicles, they require an aggressive replacement schedule and are removed from service when they attain a mileage between 80 and 90,000. We currently do not have any vehicles in reserve and anticipate the replacement of 1 before the end of this fiscal year. The next piece of equipment is a parking enforcement vehicle. The police department has 2 parking enforcement vehicles that are used for parking and street cleaning enforcement. The existing vehicle is a 2000 Go4 that was originally scheduled to be replaced in June of 2006. Daily stop-and-go, low-speed driving has taken its toll, and at this time the vehicle needs a replacement engine as well as steering and suspension work. After completing this repair, we believe the vehicle will still not be reliable for daily use, and that, along with increased maintenance cost, is the reason we are recommending this replacement. The final piece of equipment is a thermoplastic pre-melter trailer and operator-propelled thermoplastic applicator. This will replace the paint truck that we currently use. At this time, staff paints street markings such as crosswalks, limit lines, and legends. These markings should be repainted every other year, but the last few years, less time has been allotted for painting, and the time has been extended. At the time of the painting, part of the road must be closed to traffic so the paint can dry. The paint can generally be tracked over in about 2 hours. Therefore, the road is left half open for 2 hours before the staff returns and reopens the road, and the other half of the street is ready to be painted. During the time the road is closed, a staff person must remain on site for public safety. With thermoplastic, staff will apply markings to the whole intersection, and by the time the equipment is back on the trailer, the road is reopened to traffic. The unit will make staff more efficient and free up time for other needs. It applies in about half the time of paint. Knowing the challenges of the budget and the current financial concerns, the department revisited this purchase with another cost-benefit review that confirmed the overall cost savings and believes this is the most cost-effective way to address our street marking needs. There is $65,000 approved in the 09-10 Street Division budget from a special dedicated transportation fund for this purchase, and the remaining balance will be paid out of the $38,000 available in the equipment reserve for the replacement of the 1993 Chevrolet paint truck that will no longer be needed. The parking enforcement vehicle is fully funded in the equipment reserve, and the police patrol vehicle was funded in the current fiscal budget. As with all new equipment we recommend, staff reviewed opportunities to reduce our impact on the environment. Nothing more environmentally suitable was found for a patrol vehicle, and although the maker of the parking enforcement vehicle is planning on a hybrid vehicle in the future, there's nothing available at this time. Switching to thermoplastic, however, will eliminate 110 gallons of hazardous waste that we now generate every year. In addition to that, we would reduce the fleet by one vehicle and reduce the number of miles driven for street marking by 50%. I appreciate your time and can take any questions.
Any questions? City Manager?
I just wanted to comment and reinforce some statements that Mr. Lind made in his presentation, specifically having to do with the cost of the vehicles and the need to replace them given our current budget and fiscal situation. As indicated, the paint truck replacement vehicle is substantially funded by restricted dedicated funds. While those funds could be used for another purpose, it is increasingly difficult for the city to meet its maintenance of effort requirements, which prompt us in part, in addition to the benefits that this piece of equipment, as Mr. Lind clearly identified, prompt us to recommend this to you as a viable and important purchase. I would just simply identify for the City Council and public's benefit that we have not ignored the city's budget challenges, but in fact have scrutinized these recommendations very carefully, both at the department's level as well as at my level, before bringing this recommendation forward to you. And I would say that at this point, if the City Council intends that we will continue the services that these vehicles support, then I would recommend that these are necessary purchases. Thank you.
Any questions of the City Manager or Public Works staff? Any action?
Through the chair, actually, I
Yes.
have a couple of
Councilmember
questions.
Salazar.
Thank you. I was actually pleased to hear that the police vehicle is going to be a flex fuel vehicle, and although I don't think we have provisions for providing ethanol for the police fleet, it is a step in the right direction, and it gives us at least that option in the future if we start migrating our fleet to that in that direction. And I was wondering if maybe at some time in the future we could get a report on the percentage of city vehicles that are that have some provision like this to be either biodiesel, flex fuel, or hybrid. I know in the case of the police vehicles, we are kind of limited in what's available, but I know that's at least one step in the right direction. The other question I was going to ask is just in terms of the thermoplastic applicator. If I thought I read somewhere in the notes that that was going to be partially funded by a grant, or is it just existing reserve funds that are funding that?
Councilmember Salazar, will be used for how it's included in our budget for this year is funded with Proposition 42, which is a special transportation dedicated fund.
Okay. And are those funds expiring? Or do you have flexibility?
No, those funds can be built as balance from one year to another.
Thank you.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I just have a question. On the thermoplastic applicator, does it only do straight lines, or can we do stop signs with them, or other things besides straight lines?
Yes, we'll do the markings on the street, then the letters, the stop that's in there. Use the same as we do with painting. You use a template and then apply the material over the template, which will leave it down. So it will all be, everything on the pavement will be thermoplastic.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Action?
I do appreciate staff's comments, and I know I had asked several questions earlier in light of our budget and our situation. I appreciate the responses, and I do see that there was a concerted effort made for extending the life of the current vehicles, and obviously we need to have one in reserve in the police situation, et cetera. So I do appreciate the additional feedback that I received. That makes me comfortable enough to introduce the resolution authorizing the award of the contracts.
Vice Mayor Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye. Report of commissions, boards, and committees. We have none this evening. Item 12, comments from council members. We are going to receive a report from City Council Member Salazar regarding his attendance at the League of California Cities 2010 New Mayors and Council Member Academy in Sacramento.
Thank you, Mayor Wayne. I had the pleasure last week of attending the New Mayors and Council Members Academy, and it's a workshop that's put on by the League of California Cities. Those of you that tuned in last week remember that Seppi Richardson was here to tell us about some of the activities that the League is involved in, and this workshop is one of those things that we get from the League, and it is a 3-day long workshop that provides basically all of the background information that people that are new to City Council would require. And it was attended by probably 100 new and existing mayors and council people from across the state. And it was actually very, very informative. I wanted to touch on just a few of the highlights on some of the workshops. There were about a dozen separate modules that were included. One of the first ones was regarding legal powers, and again, there are a lot of restrictions on what council people can and can't do, and I know my colleagues here make it all look really easy, but there are a million things that you need to know. So it was very enlightening. Also, especially as we go through budget, there was a whole section on financial responsibilities that dealt specifically with developing policies, developing budgets, setting goals for the city. So that was, again, very timely and very useful. They also provided a lot of information on conducting meetings. There's always a lot of little points, understanding the etiquette and respecting the public and things like that, which aren't always clear. So it was nice to get that information. There was also a module on land use, which as we go through redevelopment was very, very useful in understanding how that process plays out, what the state's role is, and what our limitations are and what we can and can't do with city land. And finally, a 2-hour module on ethics, which again was very important because it's, where we sit, it's very easy to get into trouble if you don't know what the limits are. So again, a lot of times well-meaning council people can get themselves into a lot of trouble if they don't understand a lot of these fine points. So overall, I think it was a great 3 days worth of information. Also wanted to add that it was very enlightening and very rewarding to see the representation that we have from across the state, because the people that were there that spanned, I mean, there were men and women from across the state. There were people of different ethnic backgrounds, young people, old people, all these people that had the common goal of just doing good for their community. So it was very, it's very inspiring to see all the people that were there. And I did have a chance to meet some of them and talk about some of the issues that they're facing, some of the issues that we're facing, and compare notes. Even though the cities do vary in size and location and some of their issues, in the end, we're all looking at really the same constraints in terms of budget, and we're all working toward the same things. And the League is really a wonderful resource for all of us to kind of work together to get those common goals accomplished.
Good, thank you very much. I know that it was challenging making the trip because the weather was absolutely horrible, so we appreciate you going up there, and I'm sure you can pass some of the newer stuff on to us.
Excellent.
Any other comments from council members? All right, we have no closed session this evening. I would like to adjourn this meeting to February 9th, 2010. We will now adjourn this meeting to the Redevelopment Agency and ask for a roll call, please.
Agency Member O'Connell.
Here.
Agency Member Salazar.
Here.
Vice Chair Medina.
Here.
Chair Ruane.
Here. Item number 2, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 8th, 2009. Errors, omissions, additions? Seeing none, they'll be approved as submitted. A consent calendar, nothing on the consent calendar. Public comment, public hearing. We have no public hearings this evening. Public comment for items not on the agenda. Brown Act prohibits the council from discussing or acting upon any matter not agendized pursuant to state law. Would someone like to speak on public comment? All right, seeing no one. Conduct of business, item 6. Adopt the resolution approving the independent auditor reports for the Redevelopment Agency report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2009.
Chairman and agency members, just following up on the study session you heard earlier from the city's independent auditor, Meyer Hoffman McCann, regarding the financial condition, financial results for the audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2009. Redevelopment law requires that the city and the agency produce component unit financial statements for the redevelopment agency, which is the resolution that is before you tonight. To briefly summarize, the financial position of the redevelopment agency continues to improve. The net assets of the redevelopment agency increased in the amount of $1.6 million in the fiscal year of 2009. And tax increment continues to grow for the agency, as is reflected in these statements. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
We'll wait just a moment. We have some people leaving. Any questions of staff?
No.
Any action?
Sure. That's what
Okay.
that seat does.
I'll go ahead and introduce the resolution approving the independent auditor's reports for the redevelopment agency.
Vice Chair Medina.
Aye.
Agency Member Salazar.
Aye.
Agency Member O'Connell.
Aye.
Chair Ruane.
Aye. Item number 7, adjournment. The San Bruno Redevelopment Agency will meet next time to determine and announce, the next time to be determined and announced in accordance with statute. This meeting is adjourned.